Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back out here working on the 63 Ragtop. So we've been making some progress on this car, and other than little updates here and there, I really haven't made a video working on it. So that's what today's video is. It's a little late, but I'm going to go around, show you what I've done, and we're going to do a little bit of work on it. Now you can see here a genuine new old stock Volkswagen rear apron, and considering both quarter panels are aftermarket, it fits pretty well. Now, to install the quarter panels, I made this jig after a failure, and I put it on this side, and I thought I had installed the quarter panel correctly, but after leveling the car with a wide level and a short level to confirm that it was level, doing that, I found that that side was sitting higher than this side, which was throwing off the apron's fit. Also, that throws off how the bumpers fit. So I put the jig on, and I found that all of the holes coming up here fit perfectly fine. These two fit fine, and these two here on the bottom did not fit fine. So what I've done is cut a slice and just hold it down. What do you know? It fits. Surprisingly, they still line up side to side. I have put a fender on that side. All the holes line up. So I don't know if this is just an isolated issue, or that's just how all of the driver's sides are. But I also found it interesting that when I installed the fender on the passenger side, and the fender on the driver's side, and put the bumper in, the bumper sits evenly centered on the passenger side, but the bracket was hitting the top of the hole on the fender on this side, which would say this angle is too much like that, but now that we've tipped it, it'll bring it down. So I think it's just this side, and that's just because no one makes good parts anymore. Cloker Home. The only person that makes full-size quarter panel. But that's where I want it now. You see I've clamped it. I'm going to have to weld it. And it was surprisingly a large amount. That was about the full size of the gap from the cutting wheel before. Absolutely no gap now. The angle still lines up, so we're good with that. Just had to make it fit. Luckily, the rear apron pieces will still be in the right spots. Those are good to go. The rear fenders that I had for the car were the originals, and they were pretty bad. The mounting flanges were basically gone once you got to the front, and they're pretty bad all around, and it's really not worth fixing them. I got two original fenders from a local VW guy, very fair deals, and he also had this nice rear apron for me with one dent right there, but no problems in the mounting area. Unlike mine, which has been riveted and cracked and stomped on, and has a big hole cut in it by the license plate. Good for parts. Now I'm just going to show you guys that the rear end of this car is in fact level, because you saw the level says level. We'll check at the rear bolt holes, because that's my concern. And I think we'll put the rear fenders on, and possibly the deck lid. And just check fitment on everything. Alright guys, so doing stuff like this, you might think, well, that's ridiculous, it doesn't matter. These cars are built with very exacting tolerances. If you've ever watched a factory assembly video, there are so many jigs and automated processes that these cars went through. They're not like American cars, which were mostly hand-built and hand-done. A lot of machinery went into making Volkswagens because they never changed, so they could invest in it, unlike American cars. So, I've got it now. It was actually the quarter panel laying in it a little bit, playing with it. On this side, from the floor to the center of the bolt is 29 3/4-ish. The little line above 3/4. I don't know where the metric tape measure went. On the other side, on this side, with the jig installed, which is doing flawless, from the bottom hole to the ground is 29 7/8. So if that side is 29 3/4, that's about a 3mm difference. That is perfectly acceptable. 3mm is about as big of a tolerance as you want. I believe the Porsche 914 body service manual says 2 to 3. VW will go with the same. If it's 29 and the little line above 3/4, even better. So this is perfectly acceptable where it is. So we're going to leave this jig on. Over here, make sure that the clamp is tight. Maybe put a tack weld to ensure it stays there, and we can fit our fenders. So we can now fit our fenders. Not a very hard process to put fenders on a Beetle. Let's start with the passenger side. This is a very nice fender. One little accident, minor surface rust. This is a beautiful color too. Turquoise green, I believe this one was. That is one of the bucket list car colors. Preferably a ragtop. It has a beautiful turquoise ragtop cover. Now I went through a little bit of a process to get these fenders. The person I got them from has an extensive collection, and not only of parts, but cars, and I was able to pick fenders that are right for the car, because not all fenders are created equal. Factory fenders vary from year to year. Obviously, tail applications, which is not a big concern. What is happening here? In fact, the driver's side fender is for a different year, for 61 and earlier. Does not concern me in the slightest, because, well, why should it? It's changed the placement of some holes. I'd rather have an original German fender that is from the wrong year than to have an aftermarket one with proper placement, because most aftermarket fenders do not have the taillight holes in the right spot. Normally they're higher, lower, in and out, just not right. So let's put this on again. Like I said, this is a minor accident. I've had this fender on for, come on, there's the button. Okay. So these aftermarket quarter panels kind of don't fit well, so we'll have to do some massaging to make them fit a little better. Alright guys, and here we are. The camera died while I was putting the driver's fender on, so it's charging, but we've got a pretty good start here. As you can see, the fender is fitting very well, both of them to the apron. My ultimate goal is to have a perfect sweep from the fenders across, and it does, and good gaps. I want to get fender beading and the bumper bracket seals. I'll get the cheapest ones I can, probably from Amazon, and hope it gets delivered. I want to do final fine tuning this weekend and get it all welded. I keep saying I'm going to weld it this weekend. I'm going to weld it this weekend. I keep having issues. So, like, That decklid, not good for fitment. My fenders, not good for fitment. So now I've got new fenders, new decklid, level car, things where they need to be. This fits really well. I think I have to oil the latch. You notice it sits in here, but it's not bad here. It's not bad there. These lines line up. These lines don't even line up on most cars. Real cars, like never hit cars. But I did notice that dent up there messed with the inner structure a bit. And I had to tap this hinge, this driver's side hinge, over to the left to get it to line up. There's a lot of adjustment on deck lids. Adjustment you don't even think of. So like the 4 bolts that you see, they don't do what you think they do. They don't set like height in the opening. They don't set up and down like you might think. They actually set in and out. So like how it's here, where it's fine here, in here, and the fact that I had to kick this, the main hinge, the hinge mount, that's the big piece that it bolts to, how I had to kick it to the left, that makes me think this deck lid is smushed a little. So if I take it off and bear hug it and squeeze it, that's going to tuck this in, tuck that in, arch this. I'll be able to kick that hinge mount that way again. This line will line up better. This one lines up, so it's not going to line up better, it's just going to line up. And this will level out here, and then I can fine tune that with the hinge mounting. Big things. Same thing here. I have a measurement that I took when I cut the old apron off. From here to the brake is 14.5 inches. That was on my car when it was at the factory. Things change. Even though this is an original panel, it can be just slightly different. These are original fenders. They can be just slightly different. They can be from different years. Once a car has been in an accident, or you take a vehicle apart from another vehicle, put it on this one, things are not going to be exactly the same. So 14.5, if, it's 1/8 of an inch different, doesn't matter. That's in the tolerance, 3 millimeters. If one side is slightly higher than the other, as long as it's less than 3 millimeters, doesn't matter. That's intolerance. You will never see that. You cannot visibly see 3 millimeters like that. You will not be walking down the show field at Terryville and say, Doubleworks' rear apron on 63 is 3 millimeters higher on the right side. The only reason you'll know that, if it is that way when I get everything fine-tuned, is because I'm telling you that. You will not be able to pick it out because, you have this idea. You have all these factory measurements. You have your factory measurements. Don't mind that. And you're looking and you say, the door opening, KL. Where are we at? Distance between hinge pillar and quarter panel, 923. 920 is fine. 926 is fine. In fact, a lot of cars, factory, the driver's side, the door gap is slightly bigger. With the rear apron at fender security nut, 748. That probably will stay the same. But this one, the distance between the cover plate, the cross member and the rear hole for the bumper screw, 1135. That's going to change. 1133. Actually, in fact, this one is 1133 and 1135. Different measurements on both sides. That'll change. That'll change with aftermarket panels because those weld nuts are not going to be in the exact same spot every time. There are variations. Things happen. So you can't just say, well, I measured 14.5 inches. That's where the old one must be. That is a fantastic starting point. You put the old one there and see how it fits. If it doesn't fit quite perfect, adjust it. You have a small tolerance. Make it happen. Don't be set in stone on the measurements because new cars, old cars, doesn't matter. You have to give and take a little. So like with this, That apron does not appear to have been hit, but it is broken. The hinge mounting, or the whole inner structure really, has been played with. So I cannot expect to throw this decklid on from a vehicle that I don't know what happened to this vehicle. There's a dent here. A tree could have fallen on it, and that's what dented it. But the whole roof was destroyed too. I don't know. This car, never seen the car. I have the decklid from it. So I can't throw it on there and say, well, this car, the original decklid was never hit. Doesn't matter. This is from a different car. You have to make this fit this car. So don't get set in stone on measurements and tolerances. Tolerances you can pretty well set in stone. But don't get set on measurements and dimensions and all that. Make it fit. Make it within a tolerance. Make it look good. You don't want to be, this side of the apron an inch lower, a half inch lower. That's ridiculous. There's another problem somewhere making that happen. But an eighth of an inch, 3 millimeters, pushing 5 millimeters, that's getting really big of a tolerance, but you won't see that. Because once the body is on the chassis, you've got body pads adjusting things. You can have a perfectly tolerant body. Put it on the chassis, and those body pads make one side sit just a little higher. Or you go out and you put it in a parking lot, and there's a little bump. Well, guess what? Your shocks are going to adjust for that. And now one side of the car is going to be sitting a little lower. Just because it's in a parking lot in that particular spot. It's going to change. You're never going to have the car, very rarely, I mean you will. You put it in a garage that's perfectly level. Then you'll see. But your tire pressures will throw things off. The shocks, the wear on the shocks, body pads, how things settle. It's all going to throw it off. So just keep that in mind. That you could have the most perfectly tolerant car, and things like that can just throw it off. It doesn't matter. Just the way cars are. They were never perfect from the factory. They're close to perfect, but not perfect. So guys, with that long spiel about not getting too caught up in the measurements and the tolerances and all that, just making sure your car is good. Making sure it's in spec, good enough, fitting together, and it looks good when it's together. With that, we're going to end the video here. We have everything fitting on the car pretty well. Like I said, we're going to take this apron off, or a decklid off, crush it a little, make sure it fits. We're good to go. If you ever want to have a interesting read, see if you can find the scans, or if you have it, the Bentley service manual, not the little blue one for 65 to 68 or whatever it is, but the one before that, or maybe even the one before that, the giant one. It's like 1,200 pages. That has a body section. And just look at some of the things that Volkswagen says to do, what are allowed. Adjusting the cowl to hood, a 2x4 wrapped in carpet. That's real. Adjusting the door gaps. Put a jack under the door and push it up and bend the hinges. That's real. That's how old cars are. They don't just fit. You make things fit. Even on the factory. On the factory line, they were doing things like that. They might not have used a floor jack. They might have had, a special tool, a special jig, or a porta power with rams to adjust the door opening. It's all the same. You're manipulating the body to fit the bolt-on parts. So that's what you got to do. So that's what we're going to do next time, and hopefully get everything welded in. But this time, we're done. We've got all sorts of things fit now. Fender, apron, decklid. We can fit the engine bay shelves, and hopefully get everything welded. I've got big plans for the floor fans and chassis that you will find out when I do them. So guys, until next time, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye guys.